Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, I'll call the meeting to order on December 4th at 6:03 p.m. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Um, we'll start with some just a few brief announcements and then go to approving minutes. Since we do have a quorum, we'll get rolling. First order of business and announcements is to ask for a minute taker for this evening's session. If somebody's willing to volunteer and not be voluntold, that would be great.
Ah.
I can
Bob,
do it.
oh, great, Ellen. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
I had this thought of just assigning dates to everyone. I was like, it depends on people's lives and what you can get done, and just know that it doesn't have to be done for next week. Robin's minutes were in this week's packet. Bob's arrived this week, so they'll be in next week's packet. Just, we'll just keep them moving along. But yeah, Jonas.
Are we okay with taking the transcript, which is actually generating right now, and using, well, AI basically
Uh-huh.
to
Mhm.
crunch it? I've found good luck with that. And then
Yes.
we usually have to look at the results and then make sure it didn't gloss over stuff. But I think that just helps Ellen not have to be typing constantly.
Definitely, yeah, definitely not. And really the minutes summary is the most important thing is who's attending and what votes were taken and who voted for what things, just to have that in written. I mean, we have the video as documentation, but
How do I see the transcript?
Leah,
Under show captions,
Um,
at the
well,
bottom.
yeah.
Oh no, I'm telling you can see I can see it already. So under show captions, there's a little CC button.
Okay,
Click that caret and then it should pop up on the right side.
nice. Okay,
And
and
I'll
there's a
send
way to
you
And
I'll
then
capture
send you
that
the
at,
link.
yeah.
there's a little option to save
Okay,
transcript at the end
thank
too.
you.
Okay.
and you'll
I
get
will-
yeah, you'll get a
I'll
link
email
to
you the link with the recording tomorrow.
I see it now. Yeah, thank you.
no problem. Thank you for volunteering. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So I just wanted to circle back on a couple of things that I said I would get back to you all on at our last meeting. And one was the question about I went to the CPA charter and the town council. There was a question about can the town council increase, change, do anything to what our recommendations are, and they can accept them, they can reject them, and they can reduce them. So that's what Robin had mentioned. I just wanted to verify that those are the confirmed options. They cannot increase any recommendations that we make. There was also a question around open space and recreation can be combined together to meet the 10%. So 10% of what we deploy from any one year needs to go to those two areas in a combination. Whereas community housing and historic preservation each have to at least meet 10% or more. So that there was some uncertainty around that. Does that make sense to everybody?
So
Just to be
of the funds we approve, at least 10% goes in the bucket of historic preservation and what was it?
community housing.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
those two
Better.
pieces.
Got it.
Whereas it doesn't have to meet 10% for recreation and 10% for open space. Those two can be combined to meet that 10% threshold or, minimum. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And that percentage does include, yeah, okay, so that was one thing. And then there was this question about, you know, uh, these are we have the ability to make recommendations on how to use revenue that comes into town through the CPA surcharge, right? So these are town dollars. These are not some other type of dollars. They're town dollars that are generated through taxes. And so there are some questions out in the community, and we've had some commentary come to us from members of the community around whether or not one of our projects, the Jones Library project, can be recommended by us and approved by the town council if they had made a commitment earlier not to increase any additional funds. That question we haven't, Dave and I have not yet pursued together to sort of get any definitive response yet. And that we may not have that because we may just want to make a recommendation and have the town council make that decision, since that is their decision to make. But I did promise that I would circle back to Dave on that. We haven't had a chance to connect because of the holiday. Okay, so those were my pieces. I'm just going to do one quick reminder that we have a lot of presentations tonight, and I allowed us. Oh, Angus is here. Great. Welcome.
Thanks.
I was just doing a couple of we're in the announcement period here and circling back on a few things. And we went a little over time last time, so we're going to try to keep to getting us, in our 2-hour window if possible tonight. So we've got the proposals from folks for tonight. We have submitted questions to them. They responded to those questions. So if it's at all possible, just to ask your clarifying questions, that weren't asked yet in any of those processes, so that we can keep to our 20 minutes for each proposal. I think that would be super helpful, even though it's going to be hard. I know I couldn't keep us on time when we had those drone footage of the town roof. I was so enthralled last time. So you can all keep me honest, but I'm going to try to keep us to 20 minutes, and I'll remind the presenters to that fact as well. Okay, so moving on, we should approve the minutes that were in the packet from our first meeting that Robin submitted. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Any discussion, changes, questions about them? Do I have a second?
I
I second.
Who is that? Is that Jason? I couldn't.
That was Tim.
Tim,
Tim.
great.
Tim
Thank
seconded.
you. Thank you. And Jason thirded. Okay. And so all those in favor will just, we'll go do a roll call vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented. Yay or nay, Tim?
Yay.
Bob?
Yay.
Jonas?
Yay.
Ellen?
Yay.
Jason?
Yay.
Angus?
Yay.
And I will also add to the affirmative, yay. So we will approve those minutes as presented. Thank you, Robin, who did those for us. Okay, it's time for public comment. So let's see. Does anybody know we have some folks? Looks like we have a couple of attendees, and it looks like Maria has her hand up. So if you're joining us and have a public comment to make, you can raise your hand as Maria has done, and we'll bring you in.
Hi there, Maria Kapicki. Hi, Maria Kapicki, South Amherst. So I'm hoping that you guys can help me with locating materials in the packet. I know that your webpage is a little bit different from others, but I have been searching the 2025 folder and I can't find any documents, but perhaps I'm just looking in the wrong place. So the last one I see is from June of 2025. So I don't have any of your fall meetings and information. So could you guys maybe give, I know you don't usually answer questions, but this is sort of a technical question, if you wouldn't mind.
I can answer that if you want.
Yes, thank you, Leah. It's
I've been
good. It's
having
good
trouble.
to, yeah, yeah.
I've been we got the meeting on the calendar and the agendas have been uploaded, and I've been having trouble getting the link to the packets to work. There have been several people that have contacted me though, and I am happy to send them out by email until I can get those posted. Because we have everything that has been given out in meeting packets and shown during the meetings. So if there's
So
anything
what,
like you can email me directly, Maria. This is Leah. Sorry.
Yeah, yep, I
Leah,
see.
can you say again what is current? We have, the proposals are there, I thought.
All of the proposals are there.
Yep,
The meetings have been posted and the agendas are there. There
yeah,
is another link where you can put the meeting packets.
right, okay.
And for some reason I can't get in it to post anything in that.
Okay,
But all the proposals are definitely on the CPA page.
right. I've accessed them there, so
Yeah.
They're under 2027 though, correct?
It's for 27.
So
fiscal
call it
year 27.
2025. I want to make sure she wasn't looking at 2025.
Well, I'm looking for the packets for 2025. I understand that it's
Right.
fiscal year, and I'm able to, I can find the applications,
Yep.
but I'm looking for any other material, your questions, the financial information that was presented, all, everything that you do.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. And just for the record, Leah offered to send this to anyone who sends her an email, but we'll get that link solved or create a new link so that we can get those publicly available. Great. Thanks, Maria. Appreciate your comment, your
Thank you.
question. Okay, do we have any other public comment? I know there are folks in attendance who may wish to make a public comment. They're welcome to do that now. You just raise your hand and you'll be invited. Otherwise, you may be just attending, listening in, which is great. Okay, well, I don't see another hand raised. Is there any other way for someone, if they can't figure out how to raise their hand, if they can just come off mute? Or Leah, I don't know how it works if you're an attendee.
I can allow somebody to talk. I think one is a presenter.
Yeah,
There's
Okay.
one that says Denise's phone. I can allow it to talk just for a moment, I guess, if you want to see. Denise?
okay. I think some people attend and that's great. So we can close the public comment section of the meeting. And do we have is that the first presenter is Linda the first presenter or
I believe it might be Sam Giffen.
Aaron?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
me.
Sam. There's Sam. Okay, great. I didn't see it pop up there. Okay, well, so Sam, I don't know if you heard me say before that we're trying to keep to our 20 minutes. And so if you could keep to 5 to 7 minutes, if that, and then we'll have chance for questions would be awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks for
sounds
being
good.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Leah, it works for me to share my screen or? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. Well, thank you all for serving on this committee and yeah, inviting me to present tonight. I know I did respond to some of the questions that the committee developed or asked of me for some clarifying questions, but I'll go through the presentation and I'm happy to answer additional questions. So this is the request for signage or funding for signage for recreation and conservation areas. We requested funding last year and we are looking for funding again this year to help us continue this initiative. So we've requested $100,000. The purpose is to support fabrication of signs and kiosks at all recreation and conservation areas, as well as cemeteries, actually. And really the goal is to have updated signage that will bring awareness about town land, ensure accessibility of the information on signage, have branding and consistency, and really just, help identify what is town-owned land, especially all of our conservation areas in town. The signage will include welcome signs, trail markers, trail maps, kiosk signs, and some wayfinding signs, hoping to cover all of our 2,400 acres of conservation land, over 10 recreation areas and parks, and our 3 town-owned cemeteries. I know I mentioned this is our second request for this initiative. So where we're at now, we have completed the designs for all of the welcome signs for all of these areas. Our contracted designer just this week sent out to get quotes for fabrication and installation, and expected to hopefully be able to install those in spring, summer 2026. And then kiosks and map designs are ongoing, since we have to make a map for every single conservation area that we have a trail. But we're hoping that those will be completed in the spring with installation in the summer. And then my next few slides are mostly just kind of photos of our current signage, which is like old or crumbling, or for some areas non-existent. There's lack of consistency, which causes confusion, doesn't meet ADA requirements. Our new signage will, like I mentioned, have consistent style and branding similar to what we did recently in downtown, really just to add a level of credibility and professionalism to the town signage. There will be welcome signs, trail markers, wayfinding, as I mentioned, and it will help identify town land, resources, and which areas have parking or ADA accessible trails, which we're trying to do more of in town. And then the big thing that's taking more time is kiosks. So buying the actual kiosks, as well as developing these trail maps with rules and regulations and contact information. A big thing with this that we've gotten feedback from recently over the summer with our public safety departments is, since we don't have rules and regulations posted at a lot of our areas, they don't have a way to enforce some of the rules and regulations that exist. So we're hoping that this is one of the things it will address. And so this is an example of one of the kiosk signs that we'll have, including some more information, but this is what fit to the screen. And so just to go through quickly some designs in progress, like I mentioned, all the designs for these welcome area signs are complete. So this is an example of one for Groff Park. It's modeled after the one at Kendrick Park. So it'll be the same exact style and coloring and everything for all of our all of our recreation areas. This is for conservation areas. So we have these kind of what we've been calling like post and panel, like hanging wood signs, or wood posts with hanging signs to identify all the conservation areas in town, including those with parking, with ADA accessible trails, or just ones that maybe don't have a trail, but we want to let people know that this is conservation land. And then also some just basic signs identifying hiking or trails, since there are a lot of kind of areas to go onto trails off of roadways, but don't necessarily necessitate a full sign, or they don't have parking. And then, as I mentioned, the cemeteries too, they'll be the same style as the recreation areas, kind of that monumental signage to really identify those areas and bring consistency. To the right is actually signage that the planning department recently did for West Cemetery, which they've already kind of completed and fabricated. But again, it's going to help match the branding that we're working towards for all town signage. And then estimated budget, this is really estimated since we're still waiting for quotes for some things. I won't go through every specific number, but I can end up pausing on this slide because you might have more questions about it that I can reshare. But we're looking at, for conservation areas, we'll be needing 62 of those like post and panel signs to cover all of the conservation areas in town. Also 20 kiosks that we'll be needing to buy new, since many areas don't have a kiosk at the moment. and installation for those items. Recreation areas will be needing 8 welcome signs, those big monumental ones with granite. We'll need some additional kiosks to share more about what exists at those recreation areas. And then cemeteries, it's the 3 welcome signs and installation. So the estimated total, not even including the installation costs right now, is over $200,000. Again, we have 100,000 from last year, and we're requesting an additional 100,000 to help us continue to do this work for the fabrication and installation. And I think, yeah, that's my last slide. So tried to keep it quick for you, but yeah, happy to. I can stop share for now and then answer questions and bring it back up if I need to.
Great. Sam, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate that you added in the budgeting piece a little more detail for us. So thank you. Okay. As is our practice, anyone have questions for Sam? Okay, we'll start with Jonas.
Yeah, hi Sam. Thanks for the presentation. They're beautiful. I think they're beautiful signs. And I'm wondering, the granite posts. So my first question, I think you answered it, was the posts are included in the cost. And I imagine, is that a fairly large portion of the costs?
So
Um,
we're working on getting quotes. We did hear from our designer today who's contracted to also get those quotes that one of the vendors offered to do I forget what he called it, but like it is like looks like granite, but it's not necessarily granite. So we're getting both options so that way we can take budget into account there.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Angus.
Yeah, thank you. I guess my question is about the funding piece. So the budget that you just shared with us is for $204,000, but that doesn't include any of the installation costs. So was the CPA grant last year for 100,000?
Correct.
Okay, and so then if we gave the full 100,000 this year, that would cover fabrication, but it would not cover installation.
That's what we're not sure about quite yet because we're actually need to see if that's something that we would need from the vendors that are fabricating, or if it's something that maybe our conservation or DPW staff might be able to assist with. But yeah, so we're still kind of looking at some of where else we might get some funding beyond the funding that we've received and hopefully will receive from CPA.
Okay, so odds are you're going to need some kind of additional source of funding, but you won't be coming back to the CPA for that.
That I don't know if Dave has an addition, but I think the hope is that we'll be able to do a lot of it with the funding that we have and we'll hopefully receive this year. But it looks like Dave might have a
Well, I was just going to say there's no guarantee and there's no limit for not coming back, so that folks can keep coming back. It doesn't mean that we can or will continue to fund, but it is up to.
And it likely wouldn't need to be another 100,000, so.
Yeah. And I imagine, Sam, my question was around sort of phasing. Like I wasn't sure, but I didn't get the sense, or maybe you were going to fabricate them all at one time for a cost savings, and then, the installation could happen in a phased way.
Yeah, I think that's the
Potentially,
idea.
Wouldn't happen.
Yeah, we were waiting till we got all of the designs finalized. That way we can look to do a bulk fabrication. Plus that helps with some of the design details too, keeping consistency with colors and whatnot. But yeah, so we're definitely doing things to try to make it more affordable. And then also we'll figure out what the installation looks like after the fabrication phase.
Okay. Dave, you had a comment? Oh, lost you.
I think Sam's covered most of it.
Oh.
Angus's question about kind of installation. I think, historically different departments have stepped up in that regard. We can't commit anything today, but in all likelihood, I think DPW and conservation staff would hopefully team up on some of this. The other option is, to come back in a future year for some of this, and as Sam said, and phase it. But we'd like to kind of do this as much as we can across the town, all in one fell swoop, if we can. And Sam mentioned something really important, which is color consistency. If you do different runs of signs, you are never going to get the exact color match. So that's all.
Thank you. Other questions for Sam? Yes, Jonas, go ahead.
I'm wondering, there's another proposal to do some work on like Larch Hill, for instance, and on the paths.
Mhm.
As an example, is one of the areas. Would it make any sense to have those installations kind of happen in tandem with, or would that get a little messy? Um,
In tandem with
with some of the work, I mean, people are
some of the
coming in, doing
conservation,
some of the bridges, and those signs be placed near
the trail work,
a
and
lot of the trail work that's happening anyway. So
Yeah, there's definitely potential of with the vendor that we or the contractor we'd end up using for some of the trail work we could potentially loop in the installation. I think it will really depend on timing and kind of what the scope of those contractors are. But I'm sure that's something Dave and I'm assuming Erin is the one who has that request could kind of coordinate if it makes sense to do.
Yeah, I think Larch Hill is mentioned as one of a number of different areas that need attention in that second proposal that Aaron Jock is going to talk about. So um, that might be one of the priorities, but there's probably 5 or 6 others that Aaron is going to talk about.
okay, great. Seeing no other hands raised, I just thank you so much, Sam, for being here tonight and for your presentation and this good work.
Yeah, thank you all so much for the time and for all that you're doing, and good luck with the rest of the presentations tonight.
Thank you. Thanks so much. All right, so I think Erin is here. Did I see
Erin
her?
is here,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll invite her in. Hi, Erin. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
It's a little low, but yep, I can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes,
Okay.
so good.
All
Yeah.
right, so my
Great.
headset isn't working for sound, but it's working with the mic, so I'm gonna stick with that. I can't see
Okay.
myself. I don't know if that
You have a photo up, so we see a photo of
that's
you.
weird. Okay. All right, I guess I can't see myself, but okay. Well, my name's Erin Jock. I'm the conservation agent for the town of Amherst. I don't know why you can't see me, but that's unfortunate. Um, so I'm going to be, is it okay for me to share my screen or?
Yes, that would be great. Yeah, I
Okay.
just have been saying to presenters that, we're trying to keep to our 20 minutes with
Yeah,
questions. So I know
absolutely.
you've done this routine before, so just go for it. Even though we can't
Yeah.
see you, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like I'm not a panelist, I'm a speaker or something. Don't even look like I have the opportunity to share my screen.
oh,
Not seeing that. Ah, there we go.
got it.
There we go. That's
It
a little
working?
better.
Okay.
Thank you. There we go. Okay.
Okay,
Hi.
now we see you. Okay,
Excellent. Thank
welcome
you. Thank you so
in
much.
real time.
Okay, so let me try to do a screen share. Okay. All right. Just fix my display settings. Okay, I'm here tonight to talk about our request for $100,000 for passive recreational improvements on conservation lands, specifically on trail and footbridge improvements. Um, we would hope to break the funds up a little bit this year so that approximately 25,000 of the funds are used for some summer staffing to help support our 2 full-time land managers, and that 75,000 would be used for sort of more brick and mortar on the ground materials and construction. Um, Part of the reason for this is because of funding cuts for our seasonal staff and the great amount of land that we manage. And there's quite a bit of infrastructure on these properties that requires to be kept up, and our budgets don't always keep up with the demand for repairs and improvements and replacements. Um, so the just to back up a little bit, the 25K would go towards potentially some summer staff to help assist our 2 full-time people, but the 75K would go toward our goals of improving conservation land, and primarily those goals are, for passive recreational use, really for accessible use, multi-use purposes, making sure that the trails are safer, more accessible, correcting historic problems on the properties, and adding structures where appropriate to make trails safer. And we do all kinds of work in our department to try to apply for grants, matching funding, fostering relationships to get projects off the ground. All of the money doesn't come from CPA all the time. We try to partner to leverage the funds as much as possible. But some of the things we have to do in advance of construction are site survey, wetland delineation, design and permitting, and the building and construction materials are a piece of that, as well as in-kind matches with staff time and the wetland permitting and construction and labor that goes into this. So primarily the CPA funding goes towards brick and mortar to actually pay for the construction to take place. So we have a number of projects that are in the queue for 2026. I provided a number of those to you in the application, but here's another list, and I'm going to try to run through some of these to show you examples. So Larch Hill is one that's at the top of my list personally, one of my favorite conservation areas in the town of Amherst, and there's a pretty extensive, I want to say almost 350-foot long boardwalk at Larch Hill, which is handicap accessible, or was handicap accessible at one point in time. It's really, really degraded. This is going to be a major project. Just this project alone for construction is going to be over $100,000. So we have to do a ton of work in advance of survey, design, permitting, just to get to that step. But once we get through that, then we've got to figure out where the funding is going to come from to pay for these, basically for the replacement. And this boardwalk has been maintained for decades, and it's really reached a point where it's kind of past its lifespan. But if you walk around at Larch Hill, you'll see that there's other infrastructure on the property that also needs upkeep. Wentworth Farm is a great example. On the left, you can see an old vehicle bridge that's deteriorating. There's also the what's sometimes referred to as the jump bridge, the 2 photos on the right, which is also in pretty rough shape. And then the photo in the center with the red circle, this is the National Guard Bridge, which is coming off of Wentworth Farm, going towards the bike path on the Harvey Allen Trail. And you can see the bridge abutment falling into the Hop Brook there. And that's another area that's high on our priority list. This is a photo of the Potic Conservation Area, and this is a spot, a major river system in the town of Amherst carrying the Great Swamp Brook with a tiny 30-inch failing pipe that really desperately needs replacement. And this is another one that's high on our list, and we're hoping to leverage grant dollars for, but a lot of work needs to happen here. On the left-hand side, we have some images of a bridge at Cushman Brook that needs to be replaced. On the right-hand side, you see some photos of Amethyst Brook. We are hopeful to have some improvements made at the entrance of Amethyst in the near future. It's really in need of a refresh down there. It's kind of in tough shape. The trail is really muddy and mucky and needs to be sort of redesigned. There's also 2 culverts which are undersized, which need replacement down there. Just sharing an example from 2025 of a project that we partnered to fund with CPA funds. The photo on the left is what it looked like before. The photo on the right is the completed project, which was just recently completed. And so thank you so much for funding. And this project was also, I would say, 75% funded by Kestrel Land Trust, partnered with CPA dollars. So that was able to make this project happen. And then I know you've seen these before, some of our projects at Hickory Ridge that had CPA dollars that went toward them, as well as 2022 and 2023 dollars going towards various project sites, Sweet Alice, KC Trail Bridge, and Robert Frost Trail bridges throughout town. We also have Puffer's Pond, which is a big one that's coming down the line soon. Right now we have a grant from the Dam and Seawall grant from the state to basically assess the dam and the dike at Puffer's Pond. Once it's assessed, we're going to be putting together design and permitting to repair it. And in the course of that, the pond is going to be partially, or hopefully more than partially, dredged because there's a lot of accumulation of sediment in puffers. But along with that, there's quite a bit of deterioration around the site, and also dredging and the work it's going to take to repair the dam and dike is going to do quite a bit of damage to our beaches and our passive recreational areas that people enjoy. Probably one of I think it's the second most used conservation area in the town of Amherst after Amethyst Brook. And so it really needs some love in terms of repairing beaches, repairing trails. It needs that work now, but after the dam and dike repairs and hopefully the dredging work is done, it's going to need even more. So that's my presentation. I hope I kept it about right in terms of time. And that's a picture of my son riding his bike at the Hickory Ridge property and its wonderful multi-use path that CPA helped fund.
This is great, Erin. Thank you so much. I appreciate the photos and also seeing the CPA dollars at work. Really appreciate your hard work. It also just gives us a little bit of a breadth and scope of the amount of conservation land and open space, and all the trail system that we have here. We're so lucky in the town. So thank you very much. It looks like Bob has his hand raised. Maybe we can go out of presentation mode.
Yep.
Sure. Yeah. I second those comments, Katie, Erin. That was great. It's nice to see our CPA dollars in action.
Yeah.
I'm curious, everything you've described is within the wetland buffer, so it's all got wetland requirements. Does the Conservation Commission have a fast track for these projects that make sure that they can happen with appropriate safeguards, but also happen efficiently? How does that work?
No, it's an excellent question. One of the things that we're working towards in the Conservation Department is development of what we would call an operation and maintenance notice of intent. And so the idea of that is that we identify, I would say, 4, 5, 6, maybe more top projects that the Conservation Department has on its priority list. And we do the sort of design, the wetland delineation, the survey, the design, and we put all that together into a permit application along with all of our maintenance activities. So that might be maintenance of beaver deceivers and our annual mowing and all these pieces that come together for our management. And we seek approval of those in one shot from the Conservation Commission. Those permits are valid for 3 years, and the idea being that and they can be extended for 3-year periods. So the idea being that as we acquire funding, funding from CPA, funding from grants, funding from project partners, and we are ready to tackle a given project, that we have those projects in the queue so we can take care of them and get that work done.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, Jason, you're up.
Thank you. Thanks, Erin. Can you explain the rationale behind why you're asking for a sum of money and then using it on like multiple different projects as opposed to bringing a project like the Larch Hill Boardwalk, which was presented last year as well? Why aren't you focusing on one project? Because specifically that Larch Hill project is going to be expensive, and just getting that one done as
Yeah,
opposed to using the money on a bunch of different things?
that's a great question too. I mean, I think different opportunities pop up for us. So just to give an example with the Sweet Alice Boardwalk. So we had filed that notice of intent back in, I want to say 2021, and we had steadily chipped away at four separate projects on the Sweet Alice project between 2021 and 2025 today. We had one remaining outstanding piece to complete that overall project scope, and that was that boardwalk that you saw. It was one of the ones that I presented to you last year as well. But this year, Kestrel Land Trust came forward and they said, "Hey, we've got a chunk of dollars, and we will basically pay for the labor and so they covered the entire labor cost, which was substantial, and we paid for materials. So that was just an example. The opportunity arose, and we said, we're gonna do this. There's another opportunity similar to that that may be happening at Amethyst Brook. And so, I totally agree with you, Jason. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time and momentum to get these projects sort of to seek out community support, to seek out project partners. And with a project like Larch Hill, that's going to take some time. So while it is at the top of my priority list, I recognize the challenge that that particular one presents. Similarly, like the National Guard Bridge project on the Harvey Allen Trail between Wentworth Farm and the bike path is another one. I mean, you're talking 300 feet of bog bridging, an engineered installed plan that's going through very sensitive resource areas. So something like that is going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of resources. So while we wish that we could just do that, I feel like we'd be moving much slower if we said we're going to focus on Larch Hill and just try to get Larch Hill done. I feel like it would slow us down when these opportunities arise at other spots where we have partner funding.
Thank you. Appreciate that need for flexibility and the timing of this funding. It's not until next July or after, so that also complicates when you're doing projects like that, I'm sure. Dave has a comment.
Sure, just to follow up on
Yeah.
Jason's question, I think it's a great question, Jason. I think the way we think about this in large part is, these are hugely important capital assets of the town. Many of them have not been improved or received funding or any work in 30 to 40 years. The Larch Hill Boardwalk, although it is near and dear to Aaron's heart, I just don't want to overpromise that is the number one project. We really haven't discussed that in great detail. It is near and dear to my heart because I was the director of the Hitchcock Center there for many years. I was actually there when the boardwalk was built, which would have been in somewhere, I don't even want to say, late 90s or 90, maybe early 90s. Anyway, I think we need to think about these things like we think about buildings. $100,000 is, pick a number, 1/10 of what we truly need out there. So I think the expectation should be that we're gonna come back every year for a number, and it might be 100,000, just to build that reserve up. And when, as Aaron said, when the project is ready to go through permitting, through design, then we launch. But we also have to be prepared for that unexpected thing. If that bridge over the Hop Brook fails, we either have to fix it, repair it, replace it, or close that trail until we have X number of dollars to work on it. So it's not ideal, it's not the best, but I think it's all about kind of capital planning long term. But we could easily permit $500,000 to $1 million worth of projects, I think, on conservation trails if the funding was available. So that's, I think, the best approach we have at this time.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that additional info. Jason, you had follow-up?
Yeah, Dave, you just mentioned two things. One, can you tell us what other funding from the town because these are capital improvement projects, I would assume the town budgets for some of the maintenance of all of this. So what other funding comes from the town? And then you mentioned build the reserves up. Um, are you saying that this money gets kind of just put in an account and then is spent as projects come along, or how does that work? Or can you just explain what you meant by build up the reserves?
Well, yeah, maybe not the best choice of words, but Aaron mentioned last year's, we made $100,000 request last year. So it might take 2 years of CPA funding to actually get enough funding to do a project like a 300-foot long boardwalk at Larch Hill or a new bridge over the Hop Brook. So we may take an FY, 25 or 26 or 26, 27 allocation from CPAC to be able to do a project. And the other thing Aaron mentioned is just that timing of permitting and design. 20, 30 years ago, these projects were not designed by engineers. They were not stamped by engineers. Many of them were not permitted way back when. We do all of that now, and we hold ourselves to the same standards we would of any resident of Amherst or any business in Amherst. Your other question, Jason, was about capital. We do ask for capital funding for trails. The capital budget has and will continue to be under great stress. And so there's no easy answer. There's no easy fix. Certainly our capital plan doesn't have $300,000 or $500,000 to put toward trails with all the other demands, both from the town as well as the schools. So we do what we can through the capital plan. And as Aaron mentioned, we do very well with our partners, also getting grants, park grants, and working with Kestrel and other partners. We also get donations, people wanting to just help out a conservation area that's near and dear to their heart in one part of the town or another. So it's piecing all those things together and trying to make the best of it.
Thank you, Dave. We have time for another question. If anyone has one for Aaron. Aaron, you had your hand up, but maybe you.
I just wanted to make sure that Dave touched on grants because, I think that was a big piece. And I know capital, one of the big ones is Puffer's Pond that we have for thinking about the future there. So, I just wanted to mention those things, but Dave happened to cover them. So he covered the bases.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anyone else? All right, Aaron, thank you so much. Really appreciate the presentation and all the work you're doing.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Leah, I'm just looking in.
Yeah, I think
Is Greg?
Linda is next.
Linda's next, great.
Yeah. So let me let her in.
Oh, it looks like you've stopped my video, Leah.
Me?
Yes, that's what it says. But you guys don't need to see me. That's fine.
How did I do that?
It just made an announcement start. Okay, I have to.
Are you back?
It said the host has stopped your video. I thought it was on
my.
purpose. Great. Oh, hi, Linda. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate your proposal, and thank you for answering you and the group answering so many of our questions initially. So we'll just launch into your presentation, and we have about 20 minutes together. So keeping that to 5 to 7 minutes would be awesome if you can, and then leave time for our additional questions and clarifications. Be great.
And yeah, I can show these myself.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be easier. Yeah, I have. Now, having said that, let's get it launched here. Sorry, I'm being slow here to find the share screen.
Oh, down at the bottom there, your little cursor has to
Yeah,
light it up. Yeah.
There we go.
Great.
Okay, and we'll put it on slide. There we go. Thank you. So let me just begin by very quickly reminding you of the community land trust model. I'm sorry to take up time if you're fully familiar with it, but I've found repeatedly that it's just different enough from what people think about every day, and it's so fundamental to everything we do that I'm going to take one of my minutes here to give a reminder. The idea is that we partner with potential homeowners. We raise funds in order to be able to come in with the price of the land, or indeed whatever subsidy the homeowner needs, which is often more than the price of the land. And the homeowner then need buy only the home. And the relationship between the land trust and the homeowner is governed by a ground lease. It runs for 99 years, so effectively in perpetuity. And it has two key requirements of the homeowner. They must live there. So if their lives change in such a way that they choose to live elsewhere, they can't run this as a rental property. It has to be sold back to us or to a family of means similar to theirs at the time they bought it. And that in turn is governed by a restricted resale price in the ground lease. So the resale value of the house may rise, but only with the rise in area median income, not with whatever the market is doing. So effectively, this model, once a home is in this model, it is affordable in perpetuity at the level of the family that first bought it, and that varies somewhat with the circumstances. So let me jump right to the project itself. And I've put a map up here, the current site plan. There's a copy of this in the proposal. And I'll just use it again to spend a minute to remind you of the vision that we have. This is the lot right in central Amherst. You walk by it. If you walk downhill from the cinema, you're there within a block. And it's being offered to us at well below its market value by a family that wants to see it committed to affordable housing. So there's an existing building large enough that we can put 3 units in it with appropriate redevelopment. And there's also sufficient land to build an additional duplex. Habitat for Humanity will be our construction partner. So the summary of the funds needed it has shows the phases: pre-development, acquisition, redevelopment, and then home ownership. And it shows both the funds that ACLT will need and as a lump sum, what Habitat will both raise and manage. So I'm not giving the details on the Habitat side, but just there for context of the overall project. So focusing now just on the phase of acquiring the property, let me just say briefly, we're in the midst of pre-development now, and that's a relatively small cash resource requirement compared to the other phases. So I've left that detail off this table. But focusing on the cost of acquiring the property, that will cost $475,000, which is $225,000 less than the appraised value of the property, plus transaction costs, which we will pay out of existing resources. And then the redevelopment, by this I mean all of the construction and its related site work that will get us from the existing 200-year-old building to the 3 modernized units that will then be offered for sale. And then the home ownership phase, there will be 3 units for sale and at affordable prices for 2 3-bedroom units and a 4-bedroom unit. It calculated today, again, by a couple of years from now, that might be slightly different, but if done using the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities calculator for affordability, at 70% area median income, that would yield $732,000. So we've approached CPA for $450,000 toward that redevelopment cost. And just for completeness of how we're handling the funding, I show here that we've approached AMAHT for a grant of $275,000 to go partly toward acquisition, partly toward redevelopment. And then mindful that they have a sum in hand from the payment in lieu for the Hastings project. We have suggested to them that they be our bridge lender. A project like this always requires a lot of upfront costs. The construction bills have to be paid before the revenue from sales are realized. And so we've invited them to consider being our bridge loaner, a bridge lender, which would offer them the opportunity to put some of that money to work very quickly before they have other projects that are as ready to move as we are. But then that money would be returned to them to then spend in the future on something else. We do have backup lenders available, but just so that you see the different ways that we're asking the town to be engaged in that. We expect to also approach the Amelia Peabody Fund. This project looks very close to the kind of thing that they like to do. And then as with the pre-development costs and the acquisition costs, we have sufficient cash reserves to make up the total. If you add these numbers up, you'll find they're 52,000 short of the full cost of the actual construction phase. And then we would recoup those funds during the revenue from sales. And then finally, something that hasn't been in anything you've seen yet, just a bit of history that relates both to the overall development of the Amherst Community Land Trust and the part that CPA has played in it. So these pie charts show the revenue sources we've had access to over the 10 years that we've been in business. And the small one in the upper right is a summary that's the standing that we'd be at today. This is what our treasurer says are our cumulative sums to date. So we've raised a substantial amount in cash. The grants there, the green segment in the pie chart, the Community Preservation Act funds are our major grantee, our grantor. You gave us $100,000 for our very first project done in partnership with Habitat, where we bought a piece of land and they built a duplex. Also include the CPA funds you gave to Habitat are included there, so that with respect to our total holdings, it includes a previous partnership with Habitat. And then over the years, since that very first project we did in North Amherst, the town has become increasingly aware of what we do, and that has led to what feels to me like an extraordinary outburst of generosity on the part of the citizens. All that brown segment there is property that's been gifted to us for various of our projects. So we are asking for a big fraction from the town of the costs of this project, but in parallel, we have 3 other active projects, and we don't require town funding on any of them, again, because of the extraordinary generosity of the citizens who've become aware of our projects. So we're with the one that says with 61 Fearing Street is very close to what we have today, except that within 2 weeks, we're going to close on one more property. So we had already summed in the cash gifts that we raised. The neighbors of this property donated over $100,000 in about 2 months to close a gap between affordability and what the family was able to accept for this. And that's already added into the cash. When we close on the property, then the property value will add to the total value of property that we hold. And then when the other 3 projects that are in process, one is the one that we're asking you to help with now. The other 2 are both cases of families coming forward and inviting us to be partners in protecting their homes for affordability. One is a complete gift, house and land, and $150,000 to improve the home. That will make a big difference in our totals. And the other is an offer of the land and a commitment to affordable sale of the house in the future. The homeowner presently in place is making the gift of the land and will stay in residence through the rest of her life. But she will commit to the ground lease via her ground lease, having given us the land, that the home will be sold affordably. I think that's probably a good place for me to stop. I wasn't watching my watch, but I hope I stayed not too far off 5 minutes. And I'll be happy to answer further questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate the context, the history, and the update here, and the work that you're doing. Very much appreciated. It's a complex proposal, and I know, Jonas has a question. We'll start with you, Jonas.
Sure. Thanks, Linda, for the presentation. So the current homeowners of Amity are willing to sell it for $475,000. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's impressive because I mean, I don't know the exact value of that land, but I imagine with its location, it's far more than that. So, and then another question was, do you ever have issues selling the properties? I imagine they're in high demand and that they don't. That's
Yeah,
not
that's a
concern?
that's an interesting question. Being an ACLT homeowner is not for everyone. There are pluses and minuses. I summarized for you again the restrictions that such homeowners agree to. That said, there are a lot of folks out there who would like to live and raise their families in Amherst, as I'm sure you know, and the market prices are wildly out of line with even salaries of good jobs. The beginning salary for a tenure track professorship at the university doesn't come even close to affording a house in Amherst. So there is, in fact, a substantial population that thinks that the trade-offs are well worth it. The thing that narrows the pool the most, actually, is that if any public money is used, then we have to stay at the 80%, below 80% area median income. And there's not much room below 80% area median income where you still can manage any mortgage at all, where the bank is going to be able to support that purchase. And so, in effect, you may have heard me say in the presentation that those prices are based on affordability at 70%. That's the slice that we can serve. You can't make more than 80 or we aren't meeting the affordability criteria of the public money that supports it. But if you're making much less than 70, you're going to have trouble just making ends meet. But that said, we have found that a piece of CPA participation that I didn't give you the detail of before. I told you about our very first project, but you also funded you gave us $275,000 a little over 5 years ago, and that was partly operational cost, 25 of it, but it was also $225,000 subsidies, and those were in so at the time that we got that grant, it was to support 2 purchases. In fact, we were able to utilize it to put 3 families in residence, because one of the houses that had been gifted to us, one of the people who turned up in the search for that first-time homebuyer program chose the house that had been donated. So the sort of overhead of running the search actually yielded 3 families, but it was close. We had only a few more. I mean, it's nice for the ones it's tough for the families to enter into a lottery and not everybody makes it. That's kind of heartbreaking. So I don't like to see actually 20 people in a lottery when we've only got 2 subsidies. But on the other hand, it it wasn't very much more than the places that we had available that were actually coming in. So I don't have any concern that these houses won't find buyers. But it's not a slam dunk. We have to work at it.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate that. Jason.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for the presentation. In the packet, in your initial application packet, you have a breakdown of the costs, and you were looking at over $2 million in total for the existing building redevelopment and the new duplexes, with the existing building redevelopment at 1.2 million, with a per unit cost of $415,000. So does that mean that the 3 units in the existing building are going to be sold for $415,000?
No, that they're going to be sold. I've forgotten the exact numbers. The 3-bedroom units go, I'm going to say 230, but don't hold me to that. They're in that range. I can send you the chart of the up-to-date numbers. The per unit cost has come up in various discussions of whether this is the best way to use public resources or not. The AMAHT had a seminar, about a year ago now, in which various builders, nonprofit builders, came and gave a reality check, a sort of public reality check on what it takes to do a project like this. And they were talking in the range of $600,000 to $700,000 per unit. And that was not with a lot of money, going into speculators' pockets. But just by the time you use federal grants, you're required to meet certain standards for bidding and for the use of certain salary scales. There are all kinds of things that enter into that. So you might wonder how we manage to put people in homes for a per unit cost that is to the project itself, not to the home buyer, of $415,000. And the answer is a lot of public generosity. ACLT itself has 1 half-time staff member and a board and a set of volunteers, some of whom have very substantial qualifications for this work, that all work pro bono. The Habitat model depends heavily on pro bono labor. And then there is the gift of the properties itself and the willingness of our fellow citizens, our friends and neighbors, to come up with a significant fraction of the cash.
Would it not be less expensive to just demolish the existing building and build new?
No, it wouldn't actually. Habitat builds about as cheap as you can build, partly because they depend heavily on pro bono labor. And the per unit costs in this project for Habitat are greater than the per unit costs for the rehab. A huge amount of construction costs. First of all, demo is not cheap. All that material has to go somewhere. And then you have to redo the foundations. And that's a big chunk of any new build.
Linda, I'm just looking at the time and we have 2 more questions. So Jason, are you good with moving on to, okay, great. Thank you. Bob, you're up.
Yeah, Linda, thanks for that presentation. Very clear. A question, you can answer this as quickly as you can. Operationally, does your organization have a drain from holding this land and houses in inventory? In other words, the those who are in the houses were their tenants for life. Are you taking care of those houses for them? Are you taking care of the land? And does that diminish your effectiveness as an organization?
And the homeowners have the same responsibilities for the home that any homeowner would have.
Okay.
In fact, they also care for the land. That's part of the lease. They mow the lawn. If a tree needs to be cut down, they pay the cost of cutting it down. They have all the costs of maintenance that any homeowner would have. That said, the money that they spend doesn't allow them to raise the resale price. The resale price cannot rise faster than area median income rises. So there's potential disincentive built in to cut corners on keeping up. And to counteract that, to motivate people, and also just to make them feel like the whole thing is manageable, part of what we raise money for is a repair fund. So our homeowners can borrow from us at zero interest. If the roof needs replacement, and clearly there hasn't been financial preparation for that to happen, we would come in with a zero interest loan so that the roof could get replaced before it led to worse damage. And the conditions of that loan would be to encourage the repayment of it as promptly as is feasible to them. But if that failed, when eventually there was a reselling of the property, first it would go to pay off their loan. Actually, I've had a recent conversation with Megan McDonough at Habitat for Humanity. They do something similar, but it's somewhat more generous and in some ways more realistic. If really 30 years is going to go by, who's going to care, about whatever we loaned 30 years ago? They actually ramp down the loan with time, whether it's paid back or not. So I need to learn more about that. I just heard about it the other day. But
thank you. That was a very, very comprehensive answer. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. That was a great question. Robin had her hand up. We are pretty much out of time, over time, but Robin, did you have anything?
I just wanted to
No.
note that another complication of demolition is that would be subject to demolition delay in the town, which could be another 12-month delay and make the process more complicated. So
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Great. Well, Linda, thank you so much. I really appreciate the work you're doing. And on behalf of the CPA, thank you for this proposal. We so appreciate it. As you know, we've got way more requests in terms of dollars than we have to give. We wish we had it all, but that just, I know you know this, but just to state it out loud.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right. Leah, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
It's so funny. It just said the host had muted me. I don't know what's going on.
I swear.
I'm not going to have a complex yet. So
No, I don't.
housing
I think it's
trust.
Greg. I'm assuming it's Gaston. Okay. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay. Oh, Greg wants, let's see.
So Greg is here and
the trust chair, Gaston de los Reyes, should be in the audience
is
as well.
also here somewhere. Yeah, he's there. He's got his hand raised. Okay, there's Gaston. Okay, and you'll move Linda. So welcome, Greg. Nice to see you. And welcome, Gaston. Oh, well done, Gaston. Yes. Excellent. Well, welcome. We appreciate your proposal, appreciate you being here and willing to answer more questions of ours and to put this proposal before us. with the presentation. We're going to get you rolling because we have just 20 minutes for this. So take it away, Gaston.
Is he muted?
I don't hear, Gaston, I don't hear you. I see the slides. I got your one, just a second. Yeah, got it.
Okay, now you can hear me.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so
Sorry about
much.
that. So, thank you all for your time, and I want to start by just reminding you the trust is a creature of state law, just like your committee. We exist for affordable housing. One of the features of our legislation is that we can receive money from the CPA without a specific project, rather to have funds to support our mission, which is to respond to affordable housing needs as we can, nimbly, responsively, as long as these funds are spent to advance our mission. We have recently adopted a strategy, and I just want to give you the very high lights here. We're focused naturally on development. Two of the subpoints that are relevant right now. Number one, in addition to supporting the creation of rental homes that are affordable, we also have a commitment to affordable home ownership, which dovetails with the proposal you've just heard. And we're also committed to supporting the ecosystem for housing development itself. And we're going to talk about that more in just a second. In addition, we want to secure funding. We're here to do that and educate and engage the public and other parts of the town government that support our mission. We are, the labor of love of John Hornick, who started the trust and continues to support us. Our membership today, we've been able to thankfully restore a full committee. We have diversity of strengths, as you can see, in terms of what the members do. And since 2023, we've had the support of Greg Rashane, and that transforms our capacity to make a difference. So I'm extremely grateful to be able to work with Greg. Greg took a leadership supporting the development of a housing production plan on the agenda for town council to approve on Monday. Bottom line of this report, you wouldn't be surprised to hear we have incredible needs for expanding affordable housing. A lot of people in Amherst who would like to stay and aren't sure that they'll be able to do so. And before getting into the specific initiatives that we proposed, I just want to tell you that we are working to focus and activate our initiatives using calls for proposals, something we have not done, something many other trusts in the state are doing. And so we're excited to not just wait for someone to come to us to ask for money, but to reach out to the community and try to get great ideas and proposals to move things forward. So first initiative that we include in our proposal is a $125,000 request to fund a housing ecosystem innovation fund. This is something that we would activate through calls for proposal. We have already been giving a lot of attention to the capacity for ADU construction to enhance affordability. And we have developed ideas that we would continue to implement with such funding to get a standardized, approved design that would facilitate construction, to work with market rate developers and provide the funding that would actually make units affordable by our criteria. So we have a number of ideas. The key here is bringing new ideas to us and funding small grants that we think can have a very high multiplier effect. We're also concerned to see how we can be a player that helps the ecosystem that is, as we all know, getting bad surprises left and right in terms of funding from federal all the way down. And so we are particularly concerned to see how we can preserve tenancies, preserve home ownership, whether that might be through subsidies, responding to high utility expenses, supporting homeowners. You know, one among many issues facing homeowners is skyrocketing insurance. So we want to be able to respond to such needs. Projects that suddenly are missing key funding, can we come in and make the difference to keep a project on track? And then finally, we have a $250,000 request for the bread and butter of what we've been doing, which is providing local equity investments that provide the key for developers to be able to get the majority of their funding from other sources. But those other sources, like the state, like to see the commitment of local funds supporting a project and seeing that as a sign of worthiness for investment. And just want to underscore, we are looking and securing funds from other sources, and we're focused on projects that multiply the value of those investment dollars. You can see that our current balance is larger than it has been in the past because we received money in lieu of 3 affordable housing units that were going to be part of a project in town. The developer requested to make a payment instead of developing those units. So we feel extremely responsible to make that money work for the town and do more than substitute the 3 units that were not developed. So let me stop here. I'll stop sharing, and let's see how Greg and I can respond to your questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Gaston. I really appreciate the presentation, and Greg, for your work. Appreciate that. Anyone have any questions? I did have a question. This is just about the Rapid Response Fund and whether or not the trust had done this in the past for any emergencies, like COVID, et cetera, if you had experience.
Yeah, Greg, do you think you could speak to the examples of how we've done this in the past?
Sure. So before my time, the most significant thing, there was a couple different town programs, including one from the trust that was, I believe, a rental subsidy program. During COVID.
Okay.
So we kind of, and then more in a slightly more programmed way, we also backfilled some state funds to support a 3-year scattered site lease program through which is currently still being managed by Craig Stores, I believe. So we kind of filled a hole there.
Okay.
That was more of helping an organization than specific individuals, but similar population targeted.
And another good example of the different type that we mentioned would be that we came in and provided a missing chunk of money for the CLT to actually purchase a home by a local teacher in our schools with children, and they needed $25,000 to get over the hump given what had happened to pricing. And so we were able to come in and give that rapid response and facilitate that purchase.
Great. Thank you. Bob.
Yeah, thanks for that presentation. I'm curious, could you just talk a little bit briefly about your pipeline? Because that seems to be what drives your funding request, is some crystal ball about what you're looking at. As I recall, last year, the VFW was involved somehow in that pipeline. So maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Guess
Greg, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, so at the moment, in parallel to your committee, the trust is also talking to the Amherst Community Land Trust, about the Amity Street project, as you just saw, and so we've had, I think, one formal meeting with ACLT and a couple more informational meetings, and also some staff level meetings as well. So that's something we're considering in this very moment. And so the VFW continues to be on the radar for sure. We hope to be taking some steps at the town level soon with that. So remains to be seen precisely when the trust might need to come into that particular project. But it's certainly within the, there's certainly a scenario where we get an ask within a year or two. and that depends just on a lot of variables of that project, really. And then there's a couple other, ideas floating around. There has been some public conversation around a potential larger developer looking at something in North Amherst. That's not that hasn't arrived with the trust yet, but I presume were that to move forward, they want to come see us. Probably for one of those larger chunks of equity, which they'll probably be seeking from multiple sources. And then some other things kind of a little further on the horizon. For example, like one property where the town's looking at right now is a South Amherst school campus, and that's something that in particular might benefit from pre-development funding. If it ends up going forward, as a disposition, a property like that to attract an affordable developer, especially, might want some pre-development resources from an entity like the trust.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Angus, I think you were.
Yeah, my question's pretty quick, and Greg, maybe you'll be able to answer it. But I'm just wanting to understand, I guess, how much support the Municipal Housing Trust gets from the town itself. You mentioned some of these properties that they're in conversation with, but I guess I'm wondering about the financial support.
Sure. So in terms of like investments into developments, you mean?
Yeah, and then also if y'all take requests like this to the town as well.
I'm not precisely in the same way. We are, as Gaston mentioned, we were the beneficiary of the fee in lieu of affordable housing. That's not quite the same as us asking the town for funds. We don't. There's not really town funds that would route directly to the trust and then out. There's probably scenarios where the town might have a resource, like for example with ARPA, the town had direct resources which routed, directly into some developments, and the trust also supported those, for example, but not necessarily through us. There's not really a mechanism for us to ask the town for resources outside of the CPA.
The relevant resources that have been coming in that sort of way is actually funding Greg's salary. But in fact, that's something that the trust is going to be moving to cover more and more, rather than the town.
So yeah, at the moment, the trust covers half of me and the town covers the other half of me, basically. But the thing, the work overlaps to some degree, but technically the work I do on the town side are non-trust projects, and the trust resources support my support in turn of the trust.
Jonas?
Angus, is that sufficient answer?
I see.
Okay, great. Okay, Jonas,
Dave might want to weigh in too. I don't know if Dave has his hand up, but go.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I'm wondering, like for the ADUs, like just increasing the amount of stock in Amherst could have the effect of lowering housing, ideally, and more supply. Is your purview really only affordable, that 100%, or where does it kind of intersect at all with the town of Amherst, and just like especially with the ADUs? And because like
sure,
I could if I did it, I'm going to increase housing stock, maybe have a rental in my backyard. I don't know if that's would be permitted based on my zoning, but is there any kind of handoff between the town and you in that respect?
That's an aspiration, really. And I think there's a relevant morsel in the application, which is, and that's a really good question. Yes, the trust, I think, has had some discussion around ADUs and just generally thematically how adding some small homes or apartments could really benefit the town just with supply. Our official obligation when we're investing equity or loans into new or renovated homes, is there does have to be some sort of deed restriction that comes out of it. But one approach, which is kind of on that menu of ecosystem ideas, which by the way, we need to figure out which we could implement. But one I'm particularly interested in, which we're seeing around the country, are pre-approved design models. So the trust conceivably, and we have to sort of like kind of go down the rabbit hole here and really figure it out if it works. But the trust could fund a really strong set of plans for an ADU and then in turn fund the development of one affordable ADU. But the plans could also be a product and then get reused conceivably. As long as we build that one affordable ADU, those plans could get replicated again and again, regardless of affordability. And we might be able to find a way to make those available to affordable builders or any builder or private homeowner who wants to build something. And that would take some doing. And the idea would be to work with the buildings department to sort of pre-approve as much as possible of that kind of development, and then get some one or maybe two or three pre-approved designs that folks could start with, saving architectural fees, etc. But that sort of peripheral output wouldn't necessarily need to be affordable.
The theory of change that you mentioned, Jonas, we buy that more supply is helpful, especially more affordable things like ADUs. The investments that we can make into deed restricted properties, we want to see how we can maximize the learning curve of the whole town to facilitate the development of ADUs.
Thanks.
Dave, did you have a comment or?
Sure, yeah,
based
if I
on
could
the-
just
yeah,
go back
thanks.
to Angus's question earlier, which I thought was a good one. I think what's really important for all the CPA members and anybody listening is to understand how closely the trust and the town work together. This is really a partnership. It always has been. Although the trust has certain powers under state law, as Gaston indicated earlier, the funds are managed by the town. We work very closely. Greg is embedded in the planning department. So Greg, Nate Malloy, Rob Mora, myself, our new planning and economic development director, we'll all continue to work on affordable housing, daily. In terms of the town's investment, when we think of properties like Olympia Oaks, the town actually donated that land for Olympia Oaks to happen. The Wayfinders project over on Belchertown Road and Northeast Street is land the East Street School was donated by the town. We bought the Belchertown Road property. So it's really a partnership. The North Square wouldn't have happened without a tax increment financing program that the town was able to work out with Beacon. So we are deeply committed to work with the trust and bring as many resources as we possibly can to the table so that we can all work together to address some of the issues that Gaston identified and brought to all of our attention earlier, which is we have a housing crisis in Amherst and the region and the state. So it's a partnership. It's a great partnership.
And one that can obviously work much better since Greg came on board. One of the other ways that we're starting to think about how we can help is the town has land that they don't have the bandwidth to examine for its feasibility, possibly. So maybe we can be the one that funds exploration of the potential of land that is possible, but outside of what is really at the front of the list for the town to deal with.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Gaston. Other questions on this proposal? All right. Looks like you were super thorough in your presentation and in the proposal itself. I really appreciate the work you're doing. This is so important, such an important priority for the town. So thank you. And thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you so
Taking
much.
time.
All right.
Thank you all for your efforts and your time.
Don't hesitate
Thank
to let us
you.
know any other questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So
Go ahead.
I think Nate Malloy might be the next. I'm not sure.
That's
Yes.
our last,
Nate
yeah,
Malloy. Okay.
who's doing the housing coordinator. Yeah,
Yep.
great.
Is he there? Nate?
Yes. Hi, Nate.
Hi, everyone. Nate Malloy. I'm a planner with the town.
Welcome.
I'll discuss the request from the town for the part-time housing coordinator planner position. It's Greg right now, but the idea is to fund this position currently is being funded through the trust and CPA. We asked for, we asked for and received a 3-year allocation. We're asking for another 3 years. The request expires, or the funding would kind of run out next June. So we'd pick up next fiscal year and then fund this position with the trust for another 3 years. And so, we see it as a really cost-effective way to, keep its, the part-time position works, with the housing trust and also just on other housing initiatives in the town. So, that position helps with some zoning amendments. It's helped with different projects, applies for grants. And so, we see it as a really cost-effective way to increase staff capacity and not go on a project-by-project basis hiring someone or trying to hire an outside consultant. So previously, the trust would go out every time they wanted to do maybe a research project. We'd put out a request for quotes and hire a consultant maybe for $15,000 or $20,000 or whatever amount, or try to reach out to different consultants. And we realized it was slow. It was actually more costly. And so to have a staff person in town really helps, keep things moving. It's a great addition to staff. It's something that, there's a lot of need for housing in town. So there's, a lot of different areas the position can focus on. And it's a benefited position. It's part-time. So anything over 20 hours is benefited. And so the position, is the CPA funding pays for the position and salary and anything else associated with it. And the trust covers, the difference in the remainder, or, it could be about half or whatever it is of that position. The CPA Coalition a number of years ago wrote an article and said that, communities with housing trusts, this is a really great way to staff the trust and work on housing in that community. So they actually wrote an article. It's on the CPA Coalition website. It's a little dated, but it said that this is a really great use of CPA funds to, try to meet the different goals of a community's, housing plans or the CPA itself. So I don't know if there's any questions that, I don't have a slideshow. It's just really here to help clarify anything or.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Nate. Angus.
Hi, Nate. This is my third meeting with Nate in the last 24 hours, so I feel bad for both of us in a little bit of ways. So my question for you is, this is Greg's position?
Correct.
Okay. And so is it, Greg mentioned that some of his work is for town things separate from the Affordable Housing Trust. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, so the trust has as part of the general bylaws, and it says to further really affordable housing. And so Greg focuses on housing. I think to Jonah's question, it's like, oh, could it be focused on other parts of housing that's not affordable? And so, sometimes we'll ask Greg to, apply for things that are, still related to housing, maybe not capital A affordable. And so that's where, some other funding would come in. It usually, there's always some affordable component to what Greg is doing. Some kind of housing piece there.
Okay, but the 20 to 25 hours of work that position does is supposed to be solely for affordable housing, or sometimes it has this other component.
Sometimes it has this other, to be honest, I'm trying to really think, what that is. I feel like, to me, there's what you heard about, like the pipeline of projects and what happens. I think Greg's been working on a lot of projects and initiatives. So, he helped the trust with their new strategic plan. He worked with a consultant on the housing production plan. So to me, those aren't, directly related to a housing project, but the idea is that they'll help, get projects going. And so those are the kinds of things that he'd be working on. It's not like he would be working on, a transportation plan for the town. It's always going to be housing focused to lead to affordable housing.
And then follow-up question, has the Affordable Housing Trust requested that the town council contribute funding towards this position in some capacity?
Yeah, it's kind of to your question earlier. So there's, this position isn't part of the general fund or operating budget for the town. And so that's why we're making the CPA request, and then, the trust can fund it as well. And so there isn't a place for it in the next budget cycle with the town. So it's part of the general fund of the town. And so, the trust doesn't come and create, like a capital request or get any other funding from the town. There's payment in lieu from inclusionary zoning. There's a percent from short-term rental fees. Some communities will fund the trust through other fees, but it's not like a direct request from the trust to the town. It's, set up as some proportion of something that's received. And so, some communities, even from CPA, they, instead of having a request every time, they just get a direct allocation from the CPA funding. So it could be that 10% or 8% or some amount of all the CPA funding every year goes right to the trust, and they kind of manage the housing piece of it. So the trust hasn't gone to council or the departments and said, can we, get some general fund? It's really through CPA and through other funding sources.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Nate. And Angus, in the CP, since I've been on for the last few years, we've had this conversation about at some point when we have time, we would like to bring up that topic for the committee to consider so that the trust doesn't potentially, the conversation, the discussion, debate might be that they wouldn't have to keep coming back, but that a percentage would just be allocated, and maybe with contingency, something, but we haven't yet carved out the time to do that. So that might be something that we could consider as a committee this year.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. Jonas.
Yeah, is the hope that Greg would stay on? I would imagine, like with most jobs, continuity is a good thing. The longer he's there, the better he'll be at the job. Excuse me. So is there? I just got something in my throat.
Don't choke. We can wait a second.
Give me a second.
We'll come back to you.
I guess I can infer the question. Yeah, we're not, we would have Greg stay continuously with the town, right? There is this, benefit and, kind of institutional knowledge as you work longer. And so Greg's really been immersing himself in understanding, kind of the housing systems, the different organizations and institutions. And so to me, it's, there's going to be like this economies of scale to that position to have all that knowledge and then be able to further things, kind of quicker or, have different ideas. And so the idea would be to, continue that a position, the same person in that position, right, to make that more effective.
Yes, would the aspiration be, sorry, I got my voice back. Watch out. Would the aspiration be to make it be a full-time, to better, obviously, we don't know what Greg's future plans are, but it'd keep someone in place more if it's a full-time, I would imagine.
Yeah, there's been those discussions. I think, the town, again, it's really the kind of what kind of funding model would that look like from the town and, CPA and the trust. And so, and would it then have, perhaps, I think there's enough work to be done to do that. And so, we've talked about it and, could it then also be funded if it did things outside of housing, but we haven't really, I think we're seeing where it goes. I think 25 hours has been a good amount and, it could be more, the trust could always, if they needed to, if, for instance, if right now there's a cap on the hours and that's where it stays, but if in the future we could have, we could allow it to go more and the trust would pick up that difference if they really needed to get, a certain project or initiative moving or,
Thank you. Jason, it looks like you're next.
Thank you. Nate, kind of piggybacking off of, I think, Angus's and Jonas's questions about potential funding sources and the potential need for a full-time position. When these, and this is also relevant, I think, for the last two presentations, when these affordable housing units are built, do they pay any property taxes? And if so, who pays the property tax?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, so they do. So, they pay a prorated amount depending on the amount of affordability. So, it's like a prorated amount. So you could say that if, a market rate house, say we'll just do that, a market rate unit pays $10,000, something at 80% AMI might pay 80% of that. And then something at 60% would pay, a proportionally reduced amount. So, typically a comprehensive permit or like an affordable housing developer, a nonprofit developer, Valley CDC or Beacons develop things, they still pay taxes. And so I think there's a misleading conception that a nonprofit developer might get these tax credit deals and work on a project and they don't pay taxes. They do, and it's a reduced amount. And it's usually for a lot of these, they set up like a separate LLC or company because there's, especially if it's a tax credit program and depending on the permitting, there's restrictions on amount of income they can earn and profit. And so they really, create something that manages, say, that development or something, but it's the owner, the developer then turned owner pays taxes on it. And if it's a rental, it's the same thing. So, the Amherst Community Land Trust, those properties pay taxes. The land trust, and the owners will pay taxes on those units. A rental project like Wayfinders will pay taxes.
So sorry. So like the Amity project,
Right.
whoever purchases the units will pay the property tax?
And land trust is tricky because there's a ground lease and there's the unit. And so the model of the land trust is that, the owner doesn't pay for the value of the land, they just pay for the value of the structure. In Massachusetts, you can't separate the owner from the land, the building from the land. So it's a combination of the land trust and the owner. There's an agreement there that those two entities both will pay.
So it would take a number of units to generate the tax income to pay for a full-time. Do you know how many units? Does anybody have any idea what that number of units would be given the average property tax?
Right.
Rate?
We have a fair number of affordable units. I think the difference is where that money goes is, the way it funds a position. It's not, we couldn't have it go right to this position. So, there are different kinds of funds in a town, like enterprise funds or certain funds that could generate money based on services. The tax revenue from affordable housing just goes to the town's general fund. We can't send it to the trust fund, or this position. And so it's really difficult to kind of, itemize or, kind of earmark those funds for this position. That'd just be part of kind of the general operating fund for the town, if that were the case. So we could draw on that, like most salaries, but not specifically for that position.
So do they pay the 3% surcharge for CPA fund?
My understanding is if it's valued at over 100,000, they might.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Appreciate those responses. Any other questions for Nate? Seeing no hands raised. Nate, thank you so much. Good to see you. Appreciate your help with this.
Sure.
Thank you. All right. So we did it. We got through the presentations. I welcome feedback on or offline. Should you feel I'm taking too much time or too little time, doing the best I can to keep us moving here. The next item on the agenda is topics the chair did not reasonably anticipate 48 hours before the meeting. I don't have any, but if anyone else has a topic that they needed to raise or a question, I'd welcome it now. Leah, are you saying?
I just wanted to mention that in your meeting packet, which will also be posted online, was the updated, I think I called it the FY27 budget. And it's the same form that you'd seen before, but we got the final numbers from the state match. So it's just a number that's increased by, I think it was 63,000. I can't remember the top of my head.
Something like that.
Just so you know, it's in that document now. So that's our final number for FY27. And then also Sean has agreed to come to the first meeting in January.
Great.
From Mangano. So that will be after all of the presentations before you guys discuss the proposals, and he'll talk about all of the debt questions that you have. So that will be at that first January meeting.
Thank you, Leah. I know that was supposed to be during announcements and I forgot, so I appreciate you coming up with that. But that is important. The budget that Leah shared with us is pretty final, so that you can get a sense of there's a few more dollars in there for us, not 3 times as many, which is what would be nice. But and Sean will go through that with us and answer any questions so that we're really clear before we start our discussion. So thank you for getting him on board for that. Bob.
I'm going to state the obvious and say reminding everyone of the 20-minute limit ahead of the presentations is a great convention. Thank you for that.
Okay.
I think that works very, very well.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate, okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate the feedback. Well, if there are no other questions or announcements,
I do have
I'll
one. I
take-
just wanted to remind
Oh, yeah,
everyone
go, Leah.
sorry,
Yeah.
that the next meeting starts at 5:30 because of the public hearing.
Thank you. Public hearing next week,
Yes.
5:30. Everybody
How is
remember
it
that?
it being open to the public comment? This is my first
Say
time.
that. Sorry,
How is
say
it-
that again, Jonas.
How is the public hearing different than just starting the meeting with allowing the public to come in and make comments? This is my first rodeo here, so.
Great question. I don't have the
I can.
I don't either. It's
I
my
can-
first. Dave, do you?
yeah.
So first off, it's a posted public hearing, so we have to do that as part of the CPA process.
Right.
So sometimes there can be lots of people who want to speak out in favor of a project or have questions or just talk to you about projects they might support or projects they don't support. So it's an opportunity for the public to speak to you all directly, and it's part of the process. And yeah, sometimes there's one or two people there, and then we have to wait till your next meeting starts at 6.
So it's a designated amount of time, Dave. I'm forgetting.
Well, you can't start your meeting until 6. It's not designated per se.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, if we had to have a minimum amount
No,
of time.
there's no minimum amount of time.
Okay, yeah.
Open
Jonas,
door.
sorry.
I will say in
Kind of like an
past
open door,
years,
30-minute open door.
what's that,
Mhm.
Jonas? I'm sorry.
It's kind of like a 30-minute open door, and
Yeah.
we're not close the door until 6.
Yeah, in past years, when there's been projects that have been, of great interest to the community, we've had a lot of people come to these and want their 3 minutes. And in some
Right.
years, not very many people.
Yeah, I feel like in my experience that the public comment at the beginning of each meeting often relates to what's happening right in that meeting, whereas the hearing, which is required, is for all things. So if they've heard something 2 weeks before or something that's coming up. But I would
Sometimes
expect
yeah.
some good. Sorry, Dave. I would
You might-
expect some attendance next week for sure.
You might also get somebody from a board or someone related to one of the proposals coming and adding to what you heard from a nonprofit or whatnot. So
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. Angus.
Yeah, just a quick question. For the I'm thinking back to the general comment at the beginning. Do we think we'll have the packets uploaded for the public in advance of that public hearing?
Is nodding.
While we were online, Sam actually emailed me new instructions for a new link. So I think we'll be good.
Awesome.
Great.
Thanks, Lee.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Hi, Ellen.
Hi. Sorry, I was so busy taking notes. Minutes. I anticipate a large group showing up for the public hearing next week. So I just recommend that we do put a 2 or 3 minute time limit on speakers. Otherwise, not everyone may get a chance to express what they want, and that might frustrate people.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And we'll, Lee and I are meeting tomorrow, and we'll try to organize who's doing that and how we can ensure that. That's a great point.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
sorry,
Oh, go
one-
ahead, Ellen. No, that's good.
Well, you brought this up at the beginning of the meeting about the Jones Library. Will we have any more information about whether you get a chance to talk to Dave before the meeting or talk to town council, or not before the public hearing?
about whether or not this CPA funds are considered, I mean, would be considered addition to what the
Correct.
town council has already allocated.
Correct.
Dave, are we going to have a chance to connect on that?
Well, let me just be clear on the public hearing. So the public hearing is not a back and forth with you all on the committee.
Right,
It's
right.
really kind of a one-way street.
Mhm.
We support the project, we don't support the project, give them a lot of money, give them not much money, whatever people want to say. So there isn't a lot of give and take at all. It's really
There's no question. Yeah.
yeah, no questions. It's not a chance for you or staff to answer questions on the projects per se. In terms of, yeah, we can talk, Katie. Let's talk offline and
Yeah.
then we can bring information to that meeting. I think I've gotten some guidance from the town manager on this issue. And so let me clarify that and then we can talk
Great.
before that hearing. I think it's going to be more straightforward than folks might think.
I agree.
Yeah. Let's talk here, and we can email and then connect by phone and get a little more guidance from the town manager and or town attorney. But I don't think it's going to be that complicated at all.
I agree. And so we'll circle back to the committee.
Yeah.
Probably not in advance. Probably we'll just say, I'll just share it at the meeting, but
Yeah, if I could give just one snippet on that, which is, I think by and large, it's up to the town council.
right.
They have the power to support this request from the Jones Library or not. But we'll clarify that, and Katie and I can get a little more information. But it ultimately is up to the town council.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, great. Anyone make a motion to adjourn? 7:59.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Great. Thank you all. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks,
See you
everybody.
next week.
All right.
Yeah.
Have a good night. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you.